My name is Joan Ke, and yes, I am a teacher at Boynton Park High School, and I've been teaching a long time. I'm going to brag. I'm finishing 43 years of teaching, and I love it. I'm not on these director places, but I'm at the high school, and I coach tennis, but I'm also the treasurer of our union, but heavily involved on school campus, on our school campus. For instance, this week is Pep Week. So they've asked me to be one of the judges for the competition between freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. But yeah, I've been in education for a long time. Special ed has been about 30 years. Prior to that, I was an elementary school teacher and a junior high teacher. And then I was an administrator for 1 year, and I said, I'm done. I'd rather go back with the kids. And it's the kids that keep me young, so I really enjoy it.
Thank you. Sorry.
Sorry, just jump in. Go ahead.
So if you are, I'm going to collect your video release forms real quick, and then again, don't be shy. Help yourself to cookies and water if you'd like. And we'll be here until 5 o'clock. And Jill, the floor is yours.
Okay.
Do you want me to hand out the
Yeah, I'm gonna make this like an open conversation. You can, ask questions, and I'll tell you a little bit how I got into special ed myself. And these are just a little handout on what you do in special ed. That's just the beginning, and there's all kinds of different kinds of special education teachers. I'm gonna tell you right now. Okay, there's those with specific learning disabilities. Maybe there's a handicap. Troy High School has a special school for handicapped students. There's also emotional disturbed. And then there's just the kids like that I'm working with that they're behind in the reading, writing, and math. So I chose to go in that direction. And then there's the ones that you really, really care, and you might have, a special a student that needs one-on-one. Okay, like to be in the wheelchairs and stuff like that. So depending on what kind of field you like to work with kids, you hear, I don't know, I've heard people talk about special education teachers they haven't made. It depends, right? I mean, we don't have it made, but we spend a lot of hours not only during the school day but after school, and even on the weekends to work with these kids. We take them out for more like the severe students. We take them out to the malls. We get what it's like to be out there. We try to, even during the day, we have the Special Olympics, that kind of thing. For me, I'm not on that side. I'm more, like I said, I'm more at the high school level where you're going to get your behavior problems. You're going to get kids that are having issues at home. And so you're almost like a mother, like your father, you're a nurse, you're everything to them, because sometimes these kids visit their home, is school. And I've really acquired to like that because they're high school kids and they're normal kids. It's just that sometimes when in the area that I work in, some of them were homeless and they live in hotels. And that's where they come in and talk to you about it and share it. And that's where I come in and say, for instance, I teach science. I actually have 3 preps this year. I teach science, I teach English, and I also have a study skills class. Okay, the study skills class it's not how to study. It's a class where you have students that have gen ed classes, because most of the students are in gen ed classes and they have one special ed class. And then they come to my room so I can give support and also let the teacher know that I'm here to help these students out. This is day to day. This is the level of this is day to day, and like everybody else, they get a diploma. Like everybody else, they have to take all the classes. If they find at age 17 and they're not up to par as far as graduation, they go to La Vista, right, Baker School, to continue special ed. Also, they also have special ed at La Vista, except you don't have to have all the requirements in order to graduate. Now, some people, they go back to, they go to continuation school, and then they caught up, and they can come back and graduate with their high school. So far, and some of them really want to come back, and they want to graduate, even from Troy, from Fullerton, La Habra, Sonora. You can come back, but you have to be caught up at the first semester of your senior year, and then you get to graduate the class. Don't get me wrong. The Vista La Sierra High School, some of them, that's for them, and you still get a high school diploma. Okay, these are the severely students, they get a certificate of completion. In other words, they went to school, so they go more for social skills, that kind of thing. If you really want to see the different programs in Fullerton Joint High School District, there's Sonora and Troy. They have the autistic program. Sunny Hills and Buena Park has the ED program, Emotional Disorder Programs. I'm not sure what, La Habra also has an ED program. Okay, those are the three specific programs. And we had different feeder schools, so even if you lived in the Sonora area and you need to go to, let's say, Sunny Hills for the ED program, it's well taken care of. You go to the program, it's fitted. So every high school has its specific needs for certain students. And like at my high school, there's 205 special ed kids. We have the ED program, which only 15 per teacher as ED students, and you get 2 aides. Now, in the class where I'm in, it's kind of changed a little bit. We're hoping to go back to it. It used to be 20-to-1 with an aide. Well, needless to say, I have 35 in one of my classes. 35 SPED students, and luckily it's my study skills class. But the tough thing about it is if somebody needs me for math, or somebody needs me for government or econ, it's hard for me to get around them. So the state is actually coming down. We happen to be one of 10 schools. At random, they picked Buena Park High School to check to see what the class sizes and how many we have in the classroom, what kind of support are we getting. So I was very happy to hear that because my classroom is very small. I think it's about almost as small as, even smaller than this, for between 31 and 35 students. And I run it totally different because of the size. My science class, I'll tell you right now, I don't do a lot of experiments because I can't imagine having 30 kids, using a Bunsen burner, and having one aide. I mean, who knows what my students would be doing. I could turn around and look at someone, But, so I do a lot of, we have Chromebooks. Every student in our school has Chromebooks. So we do a lot of things on the Chromebooks. What else? Anybody have some questions right now as to why maybe you want to go into special education? By the way, there's elementary, middle school, and high school, and depending on what level you really like. Is there a need maybe for a want or like that anybody like to go into special education? Or have you heard horror stories about special education? Because that could be true too. I love it because you have at least one student that makes your day. You might have a lot that just have issues, but at least at the end of the day, you did something because you have a special ed student that really kind of needs, that's their home. Some of them, that's their home, and they really need us, that kind of thing. But as far as your little outlook. As you can see, our duties are a little bit different, okay? On the first page, there's different kinds of special ed needs, right? Autism, deaf and blindness, emotional disturbance, hearing impairment, mental retardation, they don't say mental retardation anymore, they call it ID, that means intellectually disabled, right? And then they have the orthopedic, then they have the OHI, which is other health impairment, and then that's the one I work with, specific learning disability, speech or language, traumatic brain injury. In fact, I just lost a student, but I had a student that I guess really got into it, and 3 guys took him, and beat him up with skateboard and everything like that. Normal, okay? So this happened about 2 months ago. So now he's on homeschooling, and now he has the TBI. Born natural and everything like that, and all of a sudden, boom, And then visual impairment, okay? Along with all this, there's specific help for each of these students. For instance, let's say the hearing impairment, you might have students that have the hearing aids, all that stuff. And for the deaf and blind, for the blindness, they have large print. Some of the students that they don't like to use large print because they get really embarrassed, especially when you're in high school. Like the paper for 1 page of math is like this big, and they really, the high school students are really different. They really like to just adjust to being in the high school. And I have 2 students that have that. And the smart girl, everything, and well respected by their peers and all like that. They don't make fun of her or anything like that. Even her Chromebook, her letters are much bigger, you know, that kind of thing. So they really adjust to their needs, all right? We play a really critical role because we also work with the gen ed teachers, okay? They're the ones who will come up to you and say, hey, you know, that's getting this special ed. Sometimes it's not. It's because, you know, because of the behavior problem, they think automatically we should put them in SPED. Well, it doesn't work that way. You go through a lot of testing with them, you know, you take academic, you know, testing and everything, and we look at the environment, what's happening. So sometimes some of these kids don't go into SPED, but they go on a 504. A 504 is almost, they get extra help, but still in a regular classroom without an IEP. Okay, when a student has an IEP, that's totally different. It's called an individual educational plan. So if the student needs an extra day to do homework, you write it down, extra day, same credit, all right? If a student really understands the concept and a gen ed teacher gives them 25 problems for homework, they only need to do half, okay? If someone was out for 2 days, then they get 4 days for reading. Okay? These are all special little things that gen ed teachers have a tough time with, but with having a study skills class, it really helps out. They can make up the work in their study skills class. Now, at the elementary level, it's a little bit different. I mean, they are actually in a full setting, it's called a special day class now, and they're with that teacher all day. And as they get better at it, they start phasing them out in the regular class. Because some of them can go out for 2 hours in a regular gen ed class, which is really neat. That's what you want to see, that kind of thing. Mostly PE, music, art, and all that stuff, they go out. Even the little ones go out in the regular ed classes, which they really, you know. Then they have buddies. The elementary school have buddies. You know, they try to work with, as a matter of fact, they do it at the high school level too. You know, we have these special clubs on campus where there's some kids with autism at our campus, and they're in a little corner. You know, they have lunch on their own. We know where they are, and so we try to form a club, you know, and meet once a week, and it's worked. Really, just the gen ed students really enjoy working with these kids. So they have these buddies for maybe 2, 3, or even 4 years. So that's part of, you know, working with the special ed kids, working with the gen ed kids. In the classroom, also they have buddies. Like if they can't take notes, they have somebody take notes for them. Or, you know, you take it, and then what they do is they copy them, Xerox them, and then they give it to them. So any kind of support to help out that special needs kid it's tremendous. We've seen some kids come in their freshman year in special ed. By their junior year, they're out. They've made it. They're in the gen ed classes, and very, very successful. I had a student who, oh gosh, many years ago was in my resource class. He says, I don't need this class. I don't need your help. I mean, I can do it on my own. I said, look, one of these days you're gonna come back and thank me because of that. Guess what? He graduated from Cal State Fullerton. He's now working with workability as a social worker. Came back, you know, and just, I've been recognizing, you know, a full-grown young man and everything, like, tell me what happened, brings me cake, balloon, and a gift, and I didn't recognize who he was. He goes, oh, you told me that I you know, I was gonna make it, and I didn't believe you, and there he was. He's working in the field that he was actually in it for 4 years. He was in the program, but he didn't have to take any SPED classes. He was just, quote unquote, just kind of labeled, you know, he didn't want to be labeled. But now he's a very, very successful young man, in his 30s, believe it or not, in his 30s. I'm really proud of him. So there's some successes as far as, you know, working with these SPED, we call them SPED students. And then you have some who just, they're 18 and they're already just like, you know what, I'm just gonna get a job. You know, I'm gonna work my dad's company. Okay, at least get a diploma. You'll never know, okay? You never know. Now the severely students, they have a certificate of completion, but we train them how to transition in the real world. You know, you have your door greeters, you know, like in Walmart. They live in places where they're able to go out and do their own grocery shopping. We train them how to do that. We train them how to go on the buses, how to get bus passes. So this level of special ed is just, what is it that you would like to work with? It's just, normal kids with lower levels of reading and math and writing, or do you really want to work with someone who's, are you really that caring person who wants to be out there and working? Because some of you, if you start out with a kindergartner and you get to follow this student until they graduate from high school. And it's really hard to leave them after you work with them. You get to actually follow them in your career as far as working with this student. And it's hard to leave them and they're on their own little world. As a matter of fact, we have one who's at Fullerton Community College right now, and this teacher's been working with her for a long time and still thinks about it, and he comes back and visits her. So it's that pride that you have in working with these kids. I'm not saying that special ed for everyone, but with me, I've been in it so long, and yet I have a family. I adopted 3 children. And luckily, none of them are in SPED, but I know families who have children that have special needs, and they went into that field because of that, I didn't go into that field. It's because, actually what happened was, when I graduated from Cal State Fullerton, I was a history major, and I took some SPED classes just because, I was a little nerd because I took 21 units, in a semester, that kind of thing. And so I said, for fun, I'm gonna take these SPED classes, At that time, you didn't have, I was in the teaching program. I said, that's pretty neat. But never really did anything, of it because I ended up being an elementary school teacher for 3 years. And so I guess, and I kept being bumped because, being out there in these years when there were so many teachers, they're going, sorry, you don't have a job. And I said, okay, sorry. So then one day, I guess one of the administrators asked me if I had any other classes, if I had any other interest in teaching. And I said, well, special ed maybe. So they looked at my transcripts, and there was 2 classes I took, got me into being into special ed. So I got a special ed job. But they said the deal is you got to go back and get your, not even a special ed credential, it was called an RSB certificate then. I had to have so many units. And sure enough, while I was teaching during the day, I was taking, after me taking 21 units, and here I am, taking classes at nighttime, I think, this is really neat. And ever since then, I got a job, in special ed. And I was really interested, but I didn't want the little ones. See, that wasn't for me. So I wanted high school. And so that's where I, ended up in high school because I wanted to work with the older kids. It was a little rough in the beginning because, I looked like a kid. And you look at these high school kids, and I had long hair, and I hair I was, I was trying to teach high school kids. And I'm not looking, I had a student who was 6'7". He was on the basketball team. So every time I wanted to talk to him, I asked him to sit down because it's like, whoa, he wore a size 18.5 shoe. In those days, that didn't exist. That was like in the 70s. So he had to order his shoes in Beverly Hills. I'm thinking, wow. And he was special ed. And not only that, when it came to high school graduation, he wanted to play basketball. 75 schools offered college ball to play. Guess what? He had difficulties writing. Okay, even though he was still in my class, he couldn't fill in the applications and everything like that. He ended up playing here for Cal State Fullerton, as a matter of fact. And they had a special program for him. And the other thing too was he was Seventh-day Adventist, and so when he was in high school, we couldn't play Friday night games. So the district changed. So we played on Thursday nights because he was such a great player. And he did. He played 4 years for Cal State Fullerton. And as a matter of fact, he's, I'm sorry to say this now, but because of his health and he never really finished school, he ended up being homeless for a while, and lived in LA, and somebody told me about it, and his brother told me about it. And so he came back and says, what can you do, and everything like that, but he played for Cal State Fullerton, he never got a degree for Cal State Fullerton, he became homeless for a while, came back, and up to this day, I guess he's living with his younger sibling, that kind of thing. But you just never know the successes of these kids. But you try to follow some of these kids that you worked with them, you really enjoyed it, but at the same time, you just like, what happens with these kids? So you don't really want to get too close to them because then you really feel like, wow, what happened to them, So going through this, also, this little, we got a teacher in self-contained special education classroom. Okay, self-contained is, you have these kids all day. Okay, that's normally in the elementary. In the high school, it's a little bit different. You do have a self-contained, and the only one that's self-contained is ED. Okay, you're with your students all day long. It's rough, you guys. It's rough. Oh, clean it. Okay. Excuse me. I don't know. Once in a while. Okay. So in a you do your own curriculum. You do what you adjust to the students. Okay. You have your parent conference, and by the way, you have more than one parent conference. It's not like parent conference day and that's it. Sometimes you need 2, 3 because maybe issues they have in the classroom, right? You test the kids, you know, whether where they actually belong. They have different kinds of classrooms to go to. You know, some of them can be in a gen ed class, some of them have to be remedial classes, like I teach the remedial classes. They're all over the place, you know. And we're not in one hallway. You know, I'm in one wing, another teacher's is another wing, another one is, you know, so they're not called SPED row, you know, special education row, that kind of thing. There was a stigma, and parents called up the school one time, and we did away with that now. So we don't have that anymore. There are some classes that are, I have one student, I don't know why he's in SPED, but he's in an AP class. Okay, he's an AP. You know what? I need to go to the restroom.
Yeah.
Is there a restroom?